God's faithfulness. And the longer I walk with him and the more I get to know him, the more I love him so much more every day. And I just see his hand in everything, even the bad. Even like this large piece of paper. I walked in, and I seriously, it was a whisper from God. This came from me. Do you know what I mean? Because when you come up here, because you each get a turn to come up here and lecture. But there are times when I have to lecture and I'm just like, am I doing the right, am I saying the right thing? Am I talking about the right thing? Because I really want to do what he wants me to do. And sometimes that's really hard because the water can get muddy. You know, because we all, whether we want to admit it or not, we all have an agenda, right? So, sorry. But we want it to be godly, right? And I think that when I saw that piece of paper this morning, because I was gone all weekend, and I actually took my stuff with me to get an outline finished, thinking I would have a little bit more time than I actually did. And so when I was doing it this morning, thankfully I had some good notes, but that was God's whisper right here. This large piece of paper was God's whisper to me, saying, yep, this is from me. But this chapter really made me look at myself and look at my walk in a whole new way. Last week was amazing. That is probably one of the best lectures in my personal opinion, that I have heard Dottie speak on. It really touched my heart, and I literally every day thought of that lecture. Every day I prayed, Lord, help me not to be blind. Help me not to be double visioned. Help me not to be cross-eyed, you know, because I believe that that's exactly where I'm at right now, is I want to be focused. And I want to fix my eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. So it's very interesting because when I was going through this lecture, and I started a couple weeks ago, actually, it wasn't even just, I keep wanting to. But then I can't see Aunt Linda, so I'm like. It wasn't until this morning, I actually had my points already figured out. It was just, I shouldn't say that. I had the acronym already figured out. I just didn't know what the words were going to be. And for the last 2 or 3 weeks, every sermon that I listened to, every chapel session that I went to, everything that I heard, lecture notes and everything, I was like picking out words that were fitting in to my acronym. And so I'm sure you figured out the acronym. It's FOCUS. Because when I read the story of Peter, I see this man and I thought, man, what an idiot. He took his eyes off Jesus. And he's like, no. He got all fearful and everything. And God said, why do you always pick out the negative? And I thought, oh my goodness, I really do that like every lecture. It's like, bad killing. Try. And then I thought, you know what? No. How many people actually walked on water?
Just one.
Just one.
Just one. Peter did.
Well, I'm sorry, I just really can't count Jesus because
he can do it.
He made the water.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And all of a sudden it dawned on me, here is this man that I'm thinking, well, he shouldn't have gotten distracted. Ye of little faith, right? But you know what? What a man of great faith.
Absolutely.
And I thought, what did it take for this man to be so focused? I don't care if he took one step on the water, ladies, or 2. Okay, to really walk, you gotta take like 2 steps maybe, right? But here is this man, and we know Peter, he was totally flawed, but he had enough faith and enough focus to walk on water, no matter how far that was. He did it. And I came to realize that, you know what? That's what I want to do. I want to be so focused And that's the word that kept coming to mind. I want to be focused. And then I got to thinking, what is in focus? What does it take what are some attributes or characteristics of focus? Because I grew up as an athlete, and as an athlete, we were taught you have to focus. And I remember my coach in basketball, and he was a man, thus the he. But this really does make a difference in a female and a male, right here. Because he would always tell us, don't listen to the crowd, drown it out, and focus on that back of the rim, like when you're shooting free throws. So, because the crowd's going wild, you're up there all by yourself, and you just focus on the back of the rim, and don't listen to the crowd. How many of you in here were athletes as young people? Okay.
What are you getting at?
Well, I know. That's funny because I worked up at camp, and the head cook up there, she's known me since I was, 14 or something, and she's filling my tray. And seriously, she's like trying to give me like 6 or 8 pieces of French toast, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't eat that much. She goes, oh yeah, you're an athlete. I'm like, no, past tense, was, no more. But I just remember he would tell me, you have to drown the crowd out. I could never do that. Could you? Could you not hear the crowd when you were?
I play basketball, but in softball, no, I rarely
No.
heard it.
See, now, I always heard it. I physically and mentally could not drown out the fray. I still can't to this day. And it's funny because my husband and I have had this conversation many times because, they like have these boxes in their brains, and they're like, okay, I'm going to watch TV. That's that box. I'm going to put that box away, and now I'm going to be on the computer. Or, that box can still be out, and it's not going to bother me. Well, me, and I don't know, maybe I'm just weird, but I thought it was like a female thing. I am like wired, I hear it all. I hear the radio going, the TV going, him clicking his finger on the computer. I hear the kids going, "Mom!" or "Stop it!" And I hear it all, everything. I cannot tune anything. And then meanwhile, I'm trying to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Read even a recipe, right?
We were trained that way.
What?
We were trained that way.
I don't know if it's training because,
I wasn't like that when my kids were young, though. I could tune all that out.
yeah, see, and I cannot tune it out. So this meant a whole new thing for me when I'm thinking about Peter and how he had focus. And it reminded me of how many of you guys are familiar with Dave Ramsey? Okay, if you've read his book, he talks about gazelle intensity, right?
Yeah.
Did I get that right? To where it's just like, you are like so focused. And I'm thinking, what? But that's what it requires. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about focusing. And I couldn't come up with a catchy title. And so what I was doing, you know me, I love words, and I love to know what the actual meaning is. So I actually looked up focus. And the definition for focus, okay, you got this? Ready? You might want to write this down. Adjusting the eye for clear vision. I thought, oh, that's perfect. That's my title, Adjusting the Eye. Especially after last week's, when we talked about the sight. And I just thought, oh God, you were so good. So, here we go. We're going to adjust our eye. So a couple things that we need to understand, and I think this is where we lose sight, is I believe with all my heart, and knowing Peter and what he's done and the things that he's accomplished in Scripture, I believe Peter understood the magnitude of who Christ was. I believe with all my heart he got it. Now, did he falter at times? Absolutely. Probably sometimes bigger than other people, right? But I believe he understood the magnitude of Christ. And that stirred something in my heart because you know what, ladies? I don't think we really understand the magnitude of Christ. At all. I mean, I believe that the people in this room, I believe that you understand the importance of Christ. I believe you understand the importance of His Word because you guys are faithful. But do we truly understand the magnitude of Christ? Who He is. Just think about who He is and what He has done. Whew. I just got the chills. Because we don't, ladies. Because really the reality is, if we understood, our life would look very different. Very different. Because you know what? And I don't want to seem negative. Truly, my goal today is to encourage you to focus. But even though you are faithful, and really, if you look at the percentage of women that are faithful every Tuesday morning, compared to the female women that attend, right. Come to the definition. Well, you know, people do use the definition of the word in the definition. Compared to the women that attend church, faithful in attending church, that's a very, very minute percentage. So you are very faithful. Okay? I'm not taking that away from you. But how much differently would our life look if we truly understood the magnitude of Christ?
We'd get out of the boat.
We'd get out of the boat. That's very true. We would get out of the boat. And I even have some questions at the end, and one of them has to do with what's your boat? Because, see, we like the safety and the security that we believe Christ gives us, right? Because we're safe right there. But you know what? Christ, the magnitude of Christ, He did not give us a boat for security. He is our security. And you know what? I think Peter understood that. I think in the midst of that storm, he knew that that man, that God that's standing over there on the water, I get that. That's where I want to be. I don't want to be in the security of the boat. I want to be with Him. Wow. So if anything today, through this time, that's what I want you to encourage you is let your mind, just for a glimpse, just for a moment, go, what does that truly mean? And let your mind go there. And even, you know, I don't know, I live in that split second because there's times where I get a glimpse and go, oh, where'd it go? Don't look at the light. Right? But I believe, truly, if we understood the magnitude of who Christ is and what He has done on our behalf, we could walk on water. I mean, obviously, our water's going to look a little bit different than the sea, right? I'm not talking about physically water, but we have things that are water in our life. But we won't get out of the boat. All right. Number 1 is F for focus, right? And it's fervent. I love that word fervent. This goes way back when I was in Bible college, when I was like 18 years old. I went to a chapel and they talked about the verse that I put in there, Romans 12:11. And I'm actually going to read it. I actually memorized it back then, but now I still know it. Practice hospitality. But I've changed translations since then, and sometimes I just go, I don't have a clue what it says. So Romans 12:11 says, I'm going to actually back up. And we've actually talked about this here recently. I think Aunt Linda did a lecture and used this. Start with 9. Let love be without dissimulation. Abhor that which is evil. Cleave to that which is good. Be kindly affectioned one to another with brotherly love. In honor, preferring one another. Not slothful in business. Fervent in spirit. Serving the Lord. Rejoicing in hope. Patient in tribulation. Continuing instant in prayer. Yes, to the necessity of the saints, and given to hospitality. Bless them that persecute you, bless and curse not. Fervent in spirit. And I think it says in the NIV, it left me. Anyway, fervor or fervent means intense heat. I have never forgotten that, and that has been, I won't tell you how many years since I was 18. The rest of you can figure that out later. But it also means a boiling anger, love, zeal, hot and burning. This is part of understanding the magnitude of who Christ is and what he's done, is that you have to be hot. The reality is there's nothing else you can be if you totally understand. Because, and we all know the verse, I would assume. If you're, what does he hate? How many of you guys have seen War Room? Well, I just like trooped over. Okay, so, and this is what I envision it. Okay? Remember when she goes and asks the real estate lady, Phyllis Schreier, how do you like your coffee? Right? She was asking her about church, how she felt about her husband. Did you pray for your husband? And she said, well, we're a good Christian, I believe in God and all that. And what does she do? She goes in and she pours herself a cup of hot coffee, and she pours her guest a cup of lukewarm coffee, right? And I love this picture. So true. So they go, and she sits down with her and gives her the cup of coffee, and she's like, oh, I love hot coffee, right? And she's sipping it, and all of a sudden, the guest drinks the cup of lukewarm coffee, and what happens? She's like, oh, Miss Clara, don't you like your coffee hot? She goes, oh, yeah, I love my coffee hot. Ooh, hot. And she's like, what, you don't like yours lukewarm? And she's like, well, no. And of course, this is Kelly's translation, right? And she pretty much says, God doesn't like his people lukewarm either. Oh, zinger, right? He wants us to be hot or cold. And if you understand the magnitude of who Christ is and what he has done, you will be nothing but hot. And that's how I know I don't understand the magnitude of Christ, is because you know what? The reality is I'm not hot. Consistently, at least. That's right. It's like last week. Sometimes we do have 20/20 vision, don't we?
What's the boiling anger part?
It's just the intensity of your anger. So, I mean, it's not a script. It's not
Just the definition.
It's just a definition of fervency. So it's basically the intensity of emotion, whether it be anger, love, any of that. So look at yourself. In order for us to fix and focus on Christ, we have to be hot. So this week, I want you to remember, be hot. Don't be lukewarm. I don't want you to be cold, so. All right. I also look at this as the intensity. And as an athlete, this is actually another word that we use in athletics, right? Is intensity. You want to go out on the court and you have to have intensity. And it also speaks because, fervent is intense heat. What that means is it's extreme degree. Intensity it's like all out, right? It's like focused, it's intense. I can't even explain it. It's like, it's concentrated effort. Single-minded, exactly. Zeroed in on what you are doing, that focal point, okay? we talk a lot about this, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse. O is for obedience. And I have a whole bunch of verses right there. The definition of obedience is doing what one is told to do, submitting one to another. If I go to one of my children and I tell them, go clean your room. And I know you've probably all experienced this. And they go up there for about 10 minutes. And of course, you know the state of their room, right? Yeah, they go up there for about 10 minutes and then come back down. My room's clean, and you're thinking, right.
Under the bed.
Right. In their mind, their perception is that they did what they were told. Now, in your mind, is that the case? No, because you know there is no way on this earth that they could physically clean the room in that amount of time. So, were they truly being obedient? In their mind. I want you to think about that for a minute and correlate it with your walk with Christ. How many things, how many commands has he told us to do, and we go, I'm obedient, I did that. And he's going, wait a minute, I know the condition of your heart. There's no way that you could have physically done that within that amount of time. Right? Don't we do that though, ladies? We've duped ourselves into believing. It's just like a child. They dupe themselves into believing. I mean, they believe it with all their heart that they clean their room. And then you start asking questions, and they're like, oh, I guess I'll be back. Right? But do we not do the same thing? I know you guys all know, because we've talked about it. We talk about all the time about obedience. You know the verses. If you love me, keep my commandments. Right? We know those verses. But I want you to search your heart, ladies. Are you truly being obedient? Or, like a child who comes to their parent, is it just obedience on a surface level? Because you know what? And you guys all know this. I'm a box checker. I can check a box as good as the next person, man. But the reality is checking the box is not obedience. We just look at a product, basically. A result and go, oh yeah, I was obedient. Obedience is here. Obedience is what's going on in the heart. Obedience is all the details, not just the appearance. Because, I mean, there's been times where I can walk into my kid's room and, wow, it kind of does look clean. How did they do that? And then you do what? Oh, look under the bed, open the closet. I mean, even sometimes you lift the sheets or the comforter and you're like, woo! Because, see, they checked a box. It looks like it's clean, but it's not. How many times do we do that? Ladies, we cannot be focused if we don't obey. True obedience of the heart. Obedience is something that we all struggle with. There are hindrances to obedience, are they not? And that's what in there. I didn't have a B to go with my A, and everybody knows we're not supposed to do that. But let's look up some of these verses because I think they're important. Galatians. You guys notice I got my phone doing it so I can see it. 5:7. Let's look back. Let's start in 5. For we, through the Spirit, wait for the hope of righteousness by faith. For in Jesus Christ, neither circumcision availeth anything, nor uncircumcision, but faith which worketh by love. Ye did run well. Who did hinder you that you should not obey the truth. Do you get what that's saying? Basically, see, it appears that you obey, but something's hindering you. It reminds me of the story in, I think it's Kings, where he says, how much are you going to sway between two opinions? It's double-minded. It's just like we talked about last week. Cross-eyed, right? Let's look at 1 Peter 4. 16 and 17. I'm going to start at 15. But let none of you suffer as a murderer or as a thief or as an evildoer or as a busybody in other men's matters. Or women's. Yet, if any man suffer as a Christian, let him not be ashamed, but let him glorify God on this behalf. For the time has come that judgment must begin at the house of God. And if it first begin at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel of God? Ladies, there's all kinds of hindrances out there. And really, I believe the reality is this. Even though the thread is the same and the ultimate root is the same, your hindrances may look very different than mine. Okay, we all struggle with different things. It's not the same. I mean, like I said, there's a root there that is probably the same. But something that may distract you is not necessarily going to distract me. What are your distractions? Goes back to Peter. What was his distraction? He looked at the wind. And it's so interesting, and Bethany brought this out today in group. You know what? The wind was blowing exactly the same when he stepped out of the boat. Nothing had changed. Why all of a sudden did he get out of the boat? He takes a couple steps, or however, we don't know how many. And then what does it say? He looked to the wind, and what happened? He started to sink. The wind was there when he stepped out of the boat. So what had changed? His focus. What's your wind, ladies? What is your wind? Because you know what? The wind's blowing. We have those things, but it's like our perspective changes. Our focal point changes. We look away from what we should fix our eyes onto something that doesn't really matter. Right? When Peter stepped out of the boat, it didn't matter that the wind was blowing. He didn't seem to care. It wasn't until he got out there that all of a sudden his perspective changed. It was a distraction. So ladies, distractions are always going to be there. Always. Every day, every moment, there was a distraction. Like right now, I can hear the talking that's going over in that corner somewhere. It's a distraction. So I can like, oh, what's going on? Or I can focus. Forget about the distractions. Are they still there? That's how I roll, right? I told you that. Is I can still hear all that stuff, but what am I focusing on? When I was up for a free throw, I could hear all that stuff. I could hear them cheering my name. I could hear the other side, you know, they do their chants to make you miss. But I was still focused on the back of that rim. It didn't matter. Because the wind was still blowing, but that rim, I was going to hit that free throw. We need to be obedient. We need to have obedient hearts. We need to root out that thread of disobedience. Okay, number 3 for C is conviction. A conviction is a fixed or firm belief, fully convinced or persuaded, a state of being convinced. And that's just like Reader's Digest dictionary. That's a secular dictionary. Does anybody know of a word used in Scripture that what the meaning is? Faith. The word pistis that we translated into faith means a firm persuasion. That's what Peter had. See, when he stepped out on that boat, out of the boat, he had faith. He had a conviction. He was fully convinced that over there, that person that I see, he's the God of the universe. I want to be right there with him. He was fully convinced, ladies. I believe that is part of our problem, is we're not fully convinced. We do not have conviction. Now, we use the term as conviction of things that God has worked in our life that we have convictions for, right? I have a conviction that I will not miss church. I have a conviction that, my brain. I'm going to read my Bible every day. Okay, we have those types of convictions, right? But do we have that magnitude of conviction? You see what I'm saying? Are we completely, 100% fully convinced? I'm not. There are days when I go, God, I don't, really? Is that really true? Am I the only one that does that? I mean, there are days that I go, I believe it, and I pray this, Lord, I believe it, I really do, but help my unbelief. Because I just have these little twinges and these, they're valleys, really, of just unbelief.
You're doubting.
I'm doubting. But yet, I believe it. Do you see the struggle? Mom, you had your hand up.
Well, I was just going to say that conviction is the long term. We want the obedience to match the conviction,
Yep.
which a lot of times our obedience is this little piece of time, like being in your room. We'll be obedient for a little while, then we withdraw, and then our conviction dwindles.
Yeah. It is. Conviction is not just a flash in the pan. It's commitment. Because it's funny, I actually struggled with this morning, and I know this may seem just totally piddly to you, or and that's okay. But some time ago, I started. The church that I attend actually requires women to wear dresses if they are or skirts when they are in front of women teaching. Anytime they're teaching a class, they have to wear a skirt. I'm like, okay, no problem. The more I, wrestled with that, because anyone who knows me knows I am not a dress person. Ever been. I thought, okay, I'm going to stick with that. Because I see the value in that. So in that, I started just, okay, Lord, is that something that I need to do? So at that moment when that came down as a rule, and my pastor even said it's really a preference. I'm not, it's not a conviction. But I thought, okay, well, I want to uphold the stand of my pastor. And like I said, you may think this is kind of crazy or whatever, but every day since that day that I said I want to uphold the stand of my pastor, I have worn a skirt every time I stand in front of women to speak. Not just at my church. So this morning I get up and I'm like, I totally just want to wear jeans. I've been on my feet all weekend. I don't really want to wear boots and all that. And all of a sudden, boom! No, you made a commitment to follow. Not that I have a conviction about wearing dresses, because really, ladies, if you know me that. But I have a conviction of upholding my pastor's wishes. And I don't ever want to be double-minded in that. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, that applies at church, but not here. Do you see? So that was my struggle this morning. And as you can see, I really wanted to wear jeans today, ladies. I got Martins.
On the outside you're wearing a dress, but on the inside you're wearing jeans.
But I wanted to be obedient, and I wanted to be committed. And I am fully convinced in the value of that. I want to be modest. I want to be respectful of you. Do you see what I'm saying? And even though that's just a little detail in our life, I think there's a point in there, and that is commitment. I've been doing it for a while, and today I really didn't want to, but I did it anyway. I mean, I was this close. And then my mom came, and I wanted to go down and talk to her, and so I was kind of late, and I'm like, oh, I'll just throw on these jeans. I went, oh. But it requires conviction and commitment. There's a verse, and I'm sure all of you know it. Hebrews 11:6. For without faith, it is impossible to please him. And that definition for faith is what? Being fully persuaded. Ladies, if we are not fully persuaded, we cannot please God. And I know a lot of you personally, and I know that is your heart's desire, is to please him. Can't do it if we're not fully persuaded, if we're not fully convinced.
Also, Kelly, though, you can't be fully persuaded unless you doubt.
Yeah.
So our doubt, that we all experience doubt. We just need to use the doubt to fully persuade us.
That's right.
Do you see what I'm saying? You use it as an instrument then to investigate, to convince your heart of the truth instead of moving you away from it.
Exactly.
So doubt can be a good thing.
And did not Peter do that?
Yeah.
Because it says when he began to sink. See, because if you're not fully persuaded, you start to doubt, you're actually going to drown. He didn't wait till that point. As soon as he saw that he was doubting and he took his focus off, he cried out. Jesus just scooped him right up. I can only imagine what it looked like. He scooped him right up and they walked together.
2 steps.
That's right. All right. And I put on there, be intentional. Because I believe that if we are fully convinced, we will be intentional. Intentional means it's done on purpose. See, if I would not have thought to be intentional about changing out of jeans and putting a skirt on, I had to be intentional because I was doubting. And I was doing more doubting. I was justifying behavior. Right? Am I the only one I know that wearing a skirt in front of you guys is just really just like such a minute little detail, and you're going, really, Kelly? You really struggle? But it's a principle. It's the principle behind it.
It's a personal conviction, not a biblical conviction.
Oh yeah, it's not a biblical. That's why I said it's a personal. It's a preference, really, even of my pastor. But I want to support that. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's not. By no means does Scripture say you got to wear a skirt in front of people. Okay. Thank you, Alan. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to be naked like Peter when he jumps out the boat the second time, right? Okay. Number 4, the U in focus. Unabandoned. I love this. Because you know what? First, the definition. Unabandoned, unrestrained, uninhibited, without care of consequence, and holding nothing back. Be all in, ladies. And on the side I put, willing to do anything and jump in with 2 feet. And the scriptures that you're going to find there are Peter. Was Peter not unabandoned?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. This man, we all know a lot of the stories, right? Okay, they come to get Jesus, and what does Peter do? Slices the ear off, right? Tell me that that's not being unabandoned. time when he's with the disciples and Jesus is going to wash their feet. And what is Peter's response? Peter says, "Oh no, you can't wash my feet." He goes, "Well, if I don't wash your feet, then you can't be a part of me, right?" And what does Peter do? Wash my whole body, baby. Is that not abandon? He didn't care what the consequence was. I was telling the ladies, we actually looked it up because there's another story in the book of John. Was it John? Where I'm reading, and here is Jesus. It's after the transfiguration, is I believe. And it's when they're out on the sea and then he's catching fish. Right? And Jesus tells them, "Well, put it over to the right side." And they're like, "Okay." And they put it over to the right side. And there's so many fish that they can't even get the nets up. And you know what it says? Peter had to put on his thing because he was naked. And I'm thinking, I'm not fishing when you're naked. What? Okay. And he jumps over the boat. Brad. Woo! Didn't go down the sides. He jumps over the boat. And in my mind, I'm thinking, did he think he was going to walk on water again? But you know what? Peter was completely unabandoned. He didn't care the consequence of jumping over that boat. That was weird. Awkward. He didn't care what the other disciples thought or what Jesus necessarily, his response was going to be when he said, "Wash all of me!" He was all in. He wanted every part, because you know what? Peter understood the magnitude of who Christ was. Ladies, if we understand the magnitude, we will be completely unabandoned. It doesn't matter what the consequence is. Doesn't matter what the result is. It doesn't matter what people think. See, that's what gets me right there. It always goes back to what's everybody going to think. You know what? Peter didn't care. Shouldn't matter. It's exactly right. He was completely unabandoned. He jumped in with 2 feet, didn't he? See, this would be me. Well, if I wasn't cowering in the bottom of the boat, I'd be like, "It's kind of cool." Not Peter, man. He's like, "Lord, if that's you, call me. I'm coming." Both feet. Number 5. I could not make up my mind which one of these I wanted to use, so I used them all. Focus requires strength, it requires stamina, and it requires steadfastness. Is that a word? Okay, good. Strength is the quality of being strong, but it is also mental or moral power. Stamina means power to resist or sustain or recover from that which weakens. Did you get that? To recover from that which weakens. Because you know, ladies, there are going to be things that weaken us. Did Peter not have those things? Oh, yeah. But you know what? He recovered. Here's the man that denied Christ 3 times. And he came back all in. And steadfastness means fixed in a direction, steadily directed. And there's a ton of verses I didn't even put out, but the one that comes to mind is, I can do all things through Christ which strengtheneth me. It's by his power that we can have stamina, that we can be steadfast, we can be focused, and that we can understand the magnitude of Christ. And the last thought that I put on there, when it comes to this, the steadfastness, stamina, and strength, and this comes from this weekend, I actually stole it, is we need to be serious. Peter was serious. He was all in. And serious means showing deep thought or purpose. What's your purpose, ladies? Why are we here? It's because of the magnitude of Christ, who he is, and what he has done. It's totally worth it. I think Peter felt that it was totally worth it, even though he made mistakes. So here's a couple questions. Sorry, Bran. She like walked over here. I'm feeling like
Nice to meet you.
kind of special. Yeah.
I could do this.
So number one, and I want you to think about this when it comes to Peter walking on the water and applying it to your life. Because there's application here. What is your storm that is skewing your view? Remember when they looked out and they couldn't even tell what they were looking at because of the storm. We have those storms in our life. But you know what? Those storms skew our view of who Christ is. What is your storm? Number two, what is your wind that is distracting you from focusing on Christ? What's your wind? Number three, what is your boat that you're afraid to leave? The boat representing your security. Ladies, boats are very unstable. It's really a false sense of security. Whatever. Yeah, isn't that a cool boat?
Yeah, it is.
See, I think that the other disciples, I think that's exactly what they were doing. They were hunkering down in that boat because that was their security. It's a false sense of security. Especially because wasn't it the disciples that said, "Oh, even the wind and the seas obey him." He's gonna knock you right out of that boat. But what's your boat? We all have them. And number four, what's holding you back from walking on the water? What do we need to do to adjust our eye and have clear vision? Let's pray. Heavenly Father, you are so good. I love you so much. Lord, I thank you that you are so gracious with me. And you just bring me along, and teach, and just like Peter, just continue to pour out grace, Lord. And you say that if you will pour out your grace on us if we draw nigh to you, you will draw nigh back. Lord, I pray that you will show us, Lord, the magnitude of who you are. The magnitude of what you have done for each and every one of us. Lord, help us to be all in. Show us those areas of our life that are our wind, that are our distractions, Lord, and that keep us from being all in. Show us our boats. Help us to see clearly through the storms, as there are definitely storms going on. We just want a clear, perfect picture of who you are, Lord, that we can be hope to a dying world, that we can be obedient to your word, to your truth. Thank you so much for your word. In your name, amen.